You ready? Of course. Okay, John, we're ready.
All right, we want to welcome everybody tonight to the Cedar Rapids Community School District Board of Education meeting. It's Monday, February 22nd, 2016. We're glad that you're all here and interested in the workings of the Cedar Rapids School District. So with that, I'll ask to call the meeting to order and read the approval of the revised agenda.
I make a motion that the revised agenda of Monday, February 22nd, 2016 Board of Education meeting be approved as set forth and that each item is considered ready for discussion and or action.
Second.
Great, and this is a roll call.
Director Johnson.
Aye.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Humboldt.
Aye.
Director Westerkamp.
Aye.
Director Meisterling. Aye. Director Jacobo.
Aye.
President Laverty.
Aye. All right. With that, part of the revised agenda is to move our communications, delegations, and petitions to the front of our meeting before the public hearing. And first, I'd like to ask Linda Howes, spouse of Wayne Howes, if she would like to address the podium. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want you to know that as Wayne's second wife, I heard a lot about his time on the school board. I was never part of that. His first wife was a teacher, and many of you probably knew her, Virginia Howes, and she was a wonderful teacher. But I am a nurse. I didn't know that much about these things. But when we met in 2004, which was just a few months after his wife died, he was attending a grief share group that I was also a member of. And we became friends at first, and then, you know, we felt like we were meant to be together then for the last years. And we didn't know what those last years would mean in time, but it turned out to be all too short. He died unexpectedly, really, February 5th, in the middle of the night, for no apparent reason. So I have to believe that God just said, okay, it's time, and you can come on up. And he has no more pain and no more sorrow. I'm thrilled for that. I'm happy for him. But I miss him very deeply, and I want to thank you for taking this moment to recognize his 20 years on the Cedar Rapids School Board. Now, I heard things like, well, I just thought I should get on there because I wanted to help influence things for my two boys who graduated from the schools, and one is a captain in the Navy now. You'll read about that. But I can give a little different perspective because I know the last 10 years. And he did talk about the school board a lot. As a matter of fact, I found a vintage picture, which Mary's going to take over to Laurel for you to look at. He's in the back row on the extreme right. And I also have at least one videotape that was taken at that time, and he was the school board president, and I was watching it, and I saw him saying, he was so, you know, just proper and appropriate in every way, but he said, now, we just were on this trip to wherever it was, and, you know, we really need to have come back with good ideas. Now, who would like to kick that off and talking about that? So I feel like he, no matter what, even during the fun times, he was thinking about how will this decision impact the students? And he had this out in his study. It was right there on the bookcase. And then he had, unfortunately, to go to the nursing home the last few months. And I felt it appropriate to take it to the nursing home because it was something that also said who he was. And these young girls that were working with him would ask him about this. And he couldn't tell them. I'm sorry to say his memory was not, he was not able to tell them. But I just, when I heard you were going to do this evening, it meant so much to me. Because I know what that meant to him. He was a faithful man. He was a man of integrity, a godly man, a Christian man. And so again, I just want to leave you with, keep up the good work. He is smiling on you, I'm sure. He loved this school district. And thank you so much for giving me a moment to speak about my dear husband, Wayne Howes.
Mrs. Howes. Thank you so much, Mrs. Howes. All of our thoughts and prayers are with you, and I think with that, we owe Wayne a moment of silence. So if all of us could just take a moment and...
I wanted to say something.
Oh,
first.
you wanted to say something? Okay, Laurel. Laurel has something to say.
Thank you. Mr. Wayne Howes served on the Cedar Rapids Community School District Board of Education from 1975 to 1995. For over 20 years, he dedicated his time and his passion to the students and staff of the Cedar Rapids schools. We all know that it takes a very special person to give of their time and energy for what has been called the greatest volunteer job of all, that of a school board member. Mr. Howes passed away on February 5th. I reached out to his sons and his wife to express our deepest condolences on behalf of the district, and I'd like to share an excerpt from each of his sons, a copy of which is available at your desk. From his son, Eric, my father's service on the Cedar Rapids School Board was deeply important to him, and he took pride in the work that he performed during his years on the board. Dad's work for the school board was part of our family life while my brother and I were growing up. We were all familiar with the regular rhythm of board meetings and came to expect a visit every week from the transportation driver dropping off materials for the next week's meeting. Over the next few days, I would find Dad sitting in the den of our house, quietly making his way through a hefty stack of documents so that he was thoroughly prepared for the next board meeting. It was only after I graduated from Washington High School and left Cedar Rapids for college that I began to more fully appreciate his service to the Cedar Rapids schools. He understood that the city's public schools constitute a vitally important public good, one that demands the interest, commitment, and involvement of all members of the community. Thus, while Dad certainly took pride in his years on the school board, I believe he ultimately regarded his work on the school board as unremarkable. It was simply the kind of thing that one did. The work that board members do for the community can be a significant burden, and that work is not often recognized or sufficiently appreciated by the wider public. But it is because the commitment by ordinary folks like my father and the current and the former school board members of Cedar Rapids Public Schools that it remains a source of pride for our community. And from his son, Corey, my brother Eric and I were told that the Board of Education would take some time at the next meeting to remember my dad's contributions to the Cedar Rapids schools. This is a very touching gesture and one that would certainly please Dad. He served for over 20 years, so it's hard to summarize his contributions in just a few words. I can remember how completely committed Dad was to the Cedar Rapids schools. He took his service seriously. I could tell that he was very proud of the work that the board accomplished. He genuinely believed that Cedar Rapids was an example of how public schools could achieve excellence when supported by members of the local community who would go out of their way to contribute. Dad was fairly quiet about his accomplishments and contributions. Those who knew him remember that he was humble and selfless. So when he was with me at school events, he was just another dad, not a school board member. On a lighter note, Dad made it very clear that Eric and I would gain no advantage whatsoever from his position on the board, but I must admit to one exception. I can remember during wintertime when I would go to sleep with snow falling. This was often followed by an inevitable 4 a.m. phone call, and I would wake up to a conversation between the superintendent and Dad conferring on whether to close school. Dad's highly scientific method was to stand in his bedroom window, phone to his ear, looking out over Beaver Avenue until he got a sense of whether cars could make it up the hill in front of our house. I would take a position in the bedroom door, and then I would lobby on behalf of all the Cedar Rapids school kids. I'm pretty sure my appeals had no bearing on the decision, but when it did work out in our favor, I took a certain satisfaction by returning to bed, knowing that I was the first student in the entire school district to find out about a snow day. Please thank the school board members on our behalf. Dad served on the board throughout my childhood years, so I have a special appreciation of the sacrifice they are making to maintain the Cedar Rapids schools as an excellent educational system that I fondly remember. And at this moment, I would like to ask for a moment of silence as we remember our former school board member, our friend, Mr. Wayne Howes, and his family. Thank you.
Thank you again for sharing that with us, and our thoughts and prayers again are with you and your family. Next, we'll move on to the rest of our communications, delegations, and petitions. Lawrence Winklowski, a request from you to speak. If you would again approach the podium and give us your name and your address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, please.
Yeah, Lawrence Winklowski, 4234 Laurel Road, Northeast. I'm not sure if, as you grew up, at least I know this has happened to me, is that someone I went to high school with died as a result of doing drugs. And, you know, later on, someone I went to grade school, high school with, you know, after a long addiction and that, he eventually gave in and, you know, his life ended tragically. But the reason I bring this up is last week I was at a school board meeting, or a PTA meeting, and it was in an evening, and it was really sad. There was only 12 people there. And we had a police officer, an officer, Alfier, who's part of the heroin initiative that's between the Cedar Rapids Police Department and U.S. Attorney's Office here. And there was no one there. It's like no one, either people were oblivious to this problem or something. But he gave previously gave a talk at the public library, and he also, you know, talked to us. And one of the things that came out of this is that he's having a difficulty coming into our schools to talk to our students. I know there's kids who do drugs in all of our high schools and all of our middle schools, and probably even some of our elementary schools, and that. But we need to open our doors like they're the pearly gates to heaven if this guy wants to come in and talk to help our students. And that my understanding is heroin and prescription drugs is a really large problem in our area. And, you know, I don't think any parent, or I don't want to see any parent have to go through a problem with their child being addicted to drugs, and I don't want to see any students having to have to go to a classmate or funeral for a classmate as a result of that they OD'd from drugs and that. So I encourage the school board, Dr. Buck, and all of his rest of his council over here to please open the doors to our schools and make them readily available so he can come in and help educate our students. You know, we talk about education and all. I think sometimes it has to go beyond just reading, writing, and mathematics. There are certain things that we have to educate our kids on, and you know, we have to step up to do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Winklowski. Next, I have a request from Tanya Johnson.
Tanya Johnson, 3816 Riverside Drive, Northeast. Today I want to address the school board as a parent. I don't get a chance to do that very often. I would like to share something awesome that happened in our family. I wanted to remind you and the community and all of our employees how awesome and amazing our staff and our administrators can be sometimes. We talk a lot about our students who sometimes get a lot of our attention when they maybe are doing things that are not as positive, making poor choices, having behaviors, and sometimes we feel like they get a lot of our attention. And in our family, my son was having some conversations about awards assemblies and things happening, and we were talking about You just need to do the best that you can, and how can you work towards some of those pieces. Last week, he was able to receive a PART award from one of his teachers, and it was for helping out. I don't even really know what it was for, but he was very excited about it. So excited that night when I got home from my meetings and things, he was already in bed, and the PART award was laying on my pillow, like that was his kind of gift to me. So it was very, very cool. But even more so than that, a couple days later, one of the administrators sent us an email and a picture of my son with the administrator, and talking about how the positive support that he had given this student in this class, and how that had gone kind of above and beyond. And I think those little things that happen, which is that a relationship piece, are so, so important, and they happen every day, many, many times a day in our district, but they get bombarded and kind of covered up with all the negative pieces that happen. So I just wanted to remind our faculty, and remind our community that every single day there are great things happening in our district, and it is because Cedar Rapids Schools is a great district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Next, we have a request from Austin Wu.
I'll be speaking today on behalf of Austin Wu. My name's Kyle Shear, address 1515 Keith Drive Northeast. Again, hi, my name is Kyle Shear, and I'm a senior at Kennedy High School. A little over a week ago, several students, including myself, went with Mr. Laverty and some other adults to lobby for the 4% increase in funding our education system needs. The trip was a valuable experience, and it allowed us to see that we could do better, reach farther, and make real legislative change. So to achieve that, we created the Iowa Student Union. The Iowa Student Union has several goals, one of which is to fight for responsible education funding by the state. Another, and the reason why I'm here, is that we advocate for student voice in education. On the state level, there's a non-voting, unelected student member who is appointed by the governor. Several hundred school districts across the country have student representatives. However, in our school district, students do not have any significant student representation. We feel the importance of student representation is vital. Both the board being addressed tonight and us, the students, have the same overarching vision to create an education system which fosters the best learning possible. Creating a dialogue between students and administration through real, meaningful representation on this board will help make this vision possible. Furthermore, we can offer a unique perspective which sees past school building walls into the realities that face students every day. We can help find ways to create the best learning environment possible. Unfortunately, at the moment, many students are not actively engaged in their educational system. The best way to make them interested and take part in the education conversation is by giving them real representation on this board. With your help and leadership, we can together work for a greater tomorrow. So today, on behalf of the Iowa Student Union and all students in the Cedar Rapids Community School District, I ask you to consider adding a peer-elected student representative onto the Board of Education. We would love to work with you farther on this and hash out the details regarding the election process and the role of the student representative on this board. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Shear and Mr. Wu. We appreciate your comments. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and move into our public hearing. We do have 3 separate public hearings, and the first will be BA 16176-02, a public hearing for the 2016-17 school year calendar, and I'll turn that over to you, Dr. Buck.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. Well, good evening, school board members. So, do they have opportunity for comment first? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you want to do that part first, and then I can give some details about the...
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly do that. So we will have time now for the public comments portion of the public hearing. With that, again, we ask, just like with the public comments section, that you approach the podium, give us your name and your address, and 5 minutes, and Laurel Day, the board secretary, will be the timer of the 5 minutes and let you know when that time is done. So again, this is not a time for dialogue with the board, but we are very interested in hearing your thoughts about the school calendar. So First, I have Lisa Klosterman.
Hi, Lisa Klosterman, 109 19th Avenue Court in Hiawatha. First, I want to say thank you for allowing us to come here, and thank you for giving us the opportunity as parents and people who are interested to have some input on the calendar. I appreciate that. And thank you very much for listening the last meeting that we were here. Obviously, you guys really did listen and reached out with the survey, so I just want to say a wholehearted thank you for that. There's obviously no perfect calendar. We all know that, and there's no perfect system. And professional learning is important. Like I said before, my husband's a teacher. They need that. They really do. So that said, I still think the shortened days would be better served as full days. But I understand you guys are fairly set on the weekly. So Friday afternoon, I think, is a great choice, much less impact on student learning. It makes much more sense as a parent, makes much more sense for the kids, and maximizes their time in school to actually have quality learning time while they're there. So that's really all that I had to say. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Kim Miller.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Kim Miller. My address is, I'm the director of the Cedarwood Uniserve Unit, 240 Classic Car Court Southwest. So I want to speak in support of weekly collaboration time among teachers. 3 years ago, due to budget constraints, middle school teachers lost their prep time, where they could discuss students who needed extra support, could make a plan for addressing student needs. Group planning or collaboration time allows teachers the time to understand that Johnny is acting out in class due to added stress at home. When those teachers who Johnny interacts with are all on the same page with how best to meet his needs, he and all the other kids in his class can learn. Next year, due to further underfunding from the state, high school teachers will be teaching an extra class. While they may not have had the same collaborative time that middle school teachers lost 3 years ago, the end result will surely be similar. As the length of each period shrinks to accommodate an additional period each day, their preparation period shrinks accordingly. Less time for prep, plus an additional class to prepare for, leaves less time for teachers to discuss the educational needs of each child. Each year for the last 6 years, lack of time and increased workload is the #1 concern of teachers. So the weekly addition of team time is something we, as the association, support. We're confident that our administration is committed to ensuring this additional time will be used as it is intended. Teachers going over individual student needs and making sure that Johnny is on the best learning track for him to succeed. Something must give. 7 consecutive years of inadequate funding from Governor Branstad has caught up with us. For those parents who find this schedule challenge to be insufferable, I would urge you to contact members of the majority party in the Iowa House or the governor. Each year, the Senate majority pushes for adequate funding, and each year the House and the governor of the same party make it clear that tax breaks to corporations are a higher priority than our kids' future. It's shameful, and it doesn't need to be this way. I urge you to channel your frustration at those in Des Moines who have shortchanged our kids' future and underfunded year after year. And please, for our kids' sake, remember in November. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Next, I have a request from Lawrence Wimklowski.
Yeah, Lawrence Winklowski, 4234 Railroad Northeast, Cedar Rapids. First, I'd like to thank everybody who participated in the calendar process and the committee and staff and that, because it was a lot longer procedure than it has been in years past. And so they put a lot of work and thought, and they just didn't, they tried their best, to get it right. I do have two questions about the calendar. Sort of, one is, I noticed on the calendar that was published, there was no school start and stop times, and that it might have been an oversight. It could be that they're still working on it. I just hope it's not, because we have some principals who really want their school schedule versus the others. And the other thing was, how are we going to enforce teachers to participate in this process? So they're not bailing on early on Friday afternoons because they don't think this is important enough. I think it's important enough. My only concern with this process is actually that we've gone through is actually taking place right now. And that is, Dr. Buck started to give us some detail, but no, we had to go right into the public comment section and that. So I'm making comments that he might have, or asking questions based on stuff that he may be answering. The way this should really be happening is the topic should be presented and all the details around it. Public should comment and ask questions. The board should have their discussion and answer the questions, and you should vote all at once. Just those 4 quick steps, and it'd probably save a lot of public comment time. So anyway, once again, you did a good job on the calendar. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winkowski. Next, I have a request from Tanya Johnson, CREA.
Tanya Johnson, 3816 Riverside Drive, Northeast. I just want to kind of repeat what I said the last time we talked, and just the reminder that speaking for teachers, as the president of the Cedar Rapids Education Association, it is really, really important that our teachers do have that appropriate appropriate professional development time weekly, so that we can talk about our students, but can also get the learning that we need in order to do what's best in our classrooms. So I will not take up a lot of time, but I appreciate the school board working hard to make that happen, so that we can do what's best for our kids. And I know that we will be looking at that throughout the year next year to see that it is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and then making changes that we need to along the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. All right, next I have Greg Lewis.
Hello. My name again is Greg Lewis, and my address is 2504 Glacier Street Southwest. And I just wanted to come along and say that I do support the new proposed calendar. I think it is important for the teachers and to have this professional time, both for development and to meet with each other and make the discussion. Obviously, it's great that we spoke. You definitely listened. I know it's not easy to come up with a perfect solution. You're not going to have something that's going to make everyone happy. But I think, like any sort of thing that needs to be done that's worth doing, you've got to make a change. And change is not easy. You're doing something that is hard, and I certainly commend you for doing that. You're doing something that is not easy, and you're taking the challenge and meeting that. And thank you again for listening to us and coming up with I think it was a really good solution.
Thank you for your comments. All right, next we have Carrie Taliat. Hopefully I said that right. Close, okay. I'll let you correct me.
It's Carrie Taliat, 5214 Bentry Court Northeast. Good evening. I understand the importance of being able to assess progress and talk about changes on a weekly basis. The fact is, many different types of companies do this with their employees. The difference is they don't open their doors late or close them early. They schedule the meetings outside of normal operating hours. From what I understand, this was already happening at some of the schools. With this calendar change, the district was looking at creating consistency across all schools. Why can't the expectations be set that short team meetings are happening on a weekly basis outside of the normal school hours? This would give the teaching teams flexibility in deciding what works best for them and still provide a consistent day-to-day schedule for our students and their families. Then it is up to the school to hold the teachers accountable, and up to the district to hold the schools accountable. In addition to these weekly team meetings, schedule one full day off a month to allow for more in-depth training and collaboration between schools. This could allow for teaching teams across the district to share best practices and lessons learned and not have the time constraints of a 90-minute block. I would like to thank everyone for taking a second look at this in the past month. It is important that we look at all options to determine what is best for our teachers, students, and families. I'm not sure if the proposed calendar will be approved tonight, but if it is, I hope that we take a good look at the results, both academically and the impact it has on our teachers, students, and families before the new calendar is written next year. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate those. Next, I have Jackie Kepler. Hello.
Hello. Jackie Kepler, 897 Peralta Road in Springville. I'm an employee of the district as a paraprofessional, and I'm also a parent. And I wanted to also say thank you for listening and taking us seriously. It took a lot of risk for a lot of us to come up and talk to the board a couple of weeks ago and give our input, and I felt it was nice to be reassured that people were really actually listening. Sending out the survey was great. Obviously, I think parents are very happy with the every Friday out. I think there are some teachers that are concerned about that. A couple of the concerns that I see is, will this increase the absentee rate on Fridays? Parents may say, you know, let's have a 3-day weekend. I would hope that maybe that could be evaluated at the end of the school year next year, just to see if absentee did increase on Fridays. I also have a concern about the consistency of the professional learning that will be happening in the schools. Will it be, you know, evaluated? How will you assess the effectiveness that this will have for the students and for the teachers at the end of the year next year? The other question I have is the 90 minutes. It's been set that it's 90 minutes, but right now our early dismissal time is at 1:30. And that's actually 2 hours of learning time that the children are missing out. So again, the start and end times of the school year haven't been determined, but if you're saying 90 minutes, you know, let's make it 90 minutes, not the two hours that it is right now. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate those. Next, I have Maria Peck.
Oops, I'm short, so we have to change that. I'm Maria Peck, and my address is 5780 Hunt Ridge Drive, Cedar Rapids. And I too have a couple come from a mixed bag here, but I wanted to first off say thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak a couple weeks ago. I came in here with a very closed mind, thinking that perhaps you had your decision made already, and our comments weren't going to matter. And I'm very thankful that you did hear what we have to say, and that you did react and do a little bit more research, because I, for one, and many of us that were here that night felt that that was a necessity, and so thank you for doing that. I know it took additional time, additional effort, etc. I guess I feel like if this weekly thing is the way it has to be, I think Friday afternoon was a good choice as far as not taking away effective learning time from the students in the mornings. If it isn't, I still think one day a month or a Friday, Monday, every 6 weeks, perhaps they would have a longer time to really focus in on certain things, but I do understand the importance of weekly to a certain extent. But I too have some of the same questions that the gal spoke before me about measuring the effectiveness of this, and what tools will you use to measure if this is working or not. And from my perspective, the time that's being set aside is over 2 hours, because if the students get out at 1:40 and their contract goes till 4, that's over 2 hours of unexplained time. So if it's only 90 minutes of this, then where's the other time going? Could we keep our students in school longer than the traditional early dismissal? I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, I also wanted to comment, coming from a school where this professional learning time is already being implemented, I still say, as I said 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, if we have schools that are successfully doing this, could they not be a charter or a model for other schools that aren't? So that those teachers or principals that are not effectively making this happen maybe come in and observe how that's being done so that they could implement it into their school as well. Because I think there's a lot of this going on and it's working successfully, and I've seen it work successfully at the school that I'm involved in. So again, I want to thank you for your time and appreciate all of your hard work.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. All right. So next I have Kelly McMahon.
Kelly McMahon, 5508 Dostal Drive, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Southwest 52404. I just want to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak to you about the proposed calendar. As an educator, I do greatly appreciate that you are putting an emphasis and honor the need for us to be able to collaborate with our peers to improve student learning and maximize our ability to make sure that every child is able to reach their potential. I did have a couple questions. As a teacher, knowing that there is a lot of things I have to get done and I already struggle in a day, I kind of would like to know about specials on those early release days. Is that a possibility that we could be moving to a 4-day special rotation and put Spanish in there as well? Just so that way, when I'm losing 90 minutes every day or every week, I would like to be able to recoup some of that instructional time on those days. But I mean, the work that we have to do is very, very important, and this will allow some continuity and consistency across the district, which is very important. So that way, when teachers are moving from building to building, like we know this is what the expectation is. So the work is important, but I want to make sure I'm also getting all my instructional time that I need with my kids. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate that. And our last speaker is Pete Clancy with CREA.
Pete Clancy, 1627 Keith Drive Northeast. As educators, I think it is vitally important that we actually turn to research when we're making decisions on what our school day should look like, what our school year should look like. And I would say that the research is very conclusive that regular professional development during the school day is a hugely important component for increasing student learning and achievement. John Hattie in his Visible Learning had an effect size of 0.62 for a regular professional development. That means teachers that have access to regular professional development on an ongoing basis are going to see an improvement in student learning by over a full letter grade in a year just because of the professional development. That means it also has a higher effect size than classroom management, the school structures that would include the calendar, and poverty. It also has a higher effect size than direct instruction. So all the arguments about losing instructional time really aren't based in the research. The research says we need this professional development time to have a greater impact on student learning. If we look at successful international school systems like Finland, we'll see that we're actually barely scratching the surface when it comes to professional learning with a 90-minute early release once a week. In Finland, everyone has half days every day, with the other half of the day teachers spend in professional learning and collaboration time. There's a reason why Finland is the #1 ranked school system in the world, and that professional collaboration between teachers is part of it. There's been several concerns brought up about teachers skipping out or making sure that we're held accountable for that time. But let me assure you, as long as the professional development that we're being offered is differentiated, tailored to our needs, suited to our students and what we think we need to grow in as professionals, and as long as that time is also given for us to collaborate, to sit down and look at student work, analyze their progress, and do so in a manner that allows us to grow all of our students, not just necessarily the ones in our classroom, that teachers will want to be there. There's not going to be an incentive for teachers to skip out. A couple other people mentioned the time discrepancies between the 90-minute early dismissal and the time that it would look like on the calendar. I know at the high school level, it will actually, students will be dismissed 90 minutes early, and that will provide for an hour and 45 minutes left on the teacher contract. Well, we don't kick students out of our schools. We don't say the bell rings and we're done with you. We spend that time after school, even on our early release days, working one-on-one with a student, providing assistance, answering questions. And that time is important to make sure that we can still have that buffer zone to work with students' individual needs, even on our early release days. Thank you again for all of your consideration and thought that all of you, both the school board and administration, has put into this process. I know our teachers appreciate being heard. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and really for all of your comments tonight. We appreciate that direct feedback from our public, so thank you. And with that, Dr. Buck, I know that you have some comments during this time as well.
Yes, so thank you. Very much appreciate these comments this evening. So just to give you a little sort of context, when we were last together, there were sort of 4 big idea questions that emerged that the board was interested in receiving additional information around, and then ultimately to guide sort of the next part of this decision. So the 4 questions were, is there a preference on day of the week and/or AM or PM? That was one of the questions. Another one of the questions was, we believe that there'll actually be a reduced cost. We do a lot of subbing right now to fill in the gap on professional learning experiences for our teachers. And so we'll give you what we believe is a pretty close estimate of what the cost savings will be on sub time in moving to weekly professional development. We also, there was a question around, and this one will be less pronounced given sort of where the recommendation is, but one of the questions was around if we did Monday morning busing, but we did the busing at the regular time and then provided supervision in the schools between the regular time when students would be bused and the new start of school time, and what the anticipated cost of supervision would look like there. And then the 4th was a creative solution. Could you investigate a different creative solution to attend to this work? So we collected data on the day of week and the AM or PM. We had over 3,800 people participate in the survey, which is a pretty good sample, I think. And of those 3,800, better than 80% said Friday PM. So overwhelmingly, in that set of data, we heard back that the preference would be Friday to PM. And just full disclosure and transparency, there were probably a half a dozen or so people that emailed me and said, I would still prefer full days. So. And we didn't put that in the survey because what we really want to know is if we were going to go to weekly, what would be the preference in terms of the day and then before or after school. So I'm sure there still is some sentiment about a full day, but if not full day, then the data set is clearly Friday PM. The subbing cost, we would anticipate this will be about a $70,000 savings in subbing, and so there's that piece of information. In terms of the Monday morning busing, what we did is if we took all of the students that are currently bused, and we did that by school, and we think a conservative, and some of that will create additional issues. In some of our schools, we don't even have enough paraeducators, so we tried to use a ratio of 20 to 1, and these are just these are just sort of approximations, right? So we tried to use about 20 to 1 at the elementary, 25 to 1 at middle school, about 30 to 1 at the high school. Kids, of course, get a little more responsible in terms of what level of supervision you need. So sort of roughing that out and cost estimating that. And again, it would be maybe even questions with classrooms and some of those things. We thought a conservative estimate would probably be $250,000. But because we're not headed down that path at this point, it becomes less an issue for tonight. But I did want to, I mean, we've heard this from several speakers. We did want to honor that there were questions brought forward last time, and we did do some due diligence around those questions. The 4th one is this idea of a creative solution, and we actually went to, so one of the things that's unique about calendars in Iowa right now is you can go to hours or days, and we choose to use hours. So the creative solution we discussed, and we actually took this to our CREA leadership and talked this through some. Essentially the idea is if you took teacher contract days and turned them into hours, and you took those days and cut them into 1-hour slices, so you think of them as hours rather than days, and take those 1-hour slices of the hours and apply them to the school day once a week. So what you'd have in effect there is the teachers would extend their contract day an hour once a week to engage in this professional learning time. And I would tell you there was some energy around that conversation. I think what you also quickly find is there are a whole bunch of other things you need to start to consider, like after-school activities and athletics and on and on and on. So it got fairly complex fairly quickly, but I do want to at least acknowledge that we did start down that. And I think, and I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think the sentiment from CREA leadership is we'd be willing to reinvest in this conversation going forward. In the interim, however, we really do believe that weekly professional learning experiences for our teachers are important and some of the next right work to even better serve our kids here in Cedar Rapids. So if I could just give a quick example of how that could work. You know, Pete's comment about differentiated and this idea that teachers might choose not to participate. It's just like instruction. High quality work motivates people to be there and engage in it, and then you can also sort of make them be there. I was at a elementary building leadership team meeting a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about purpose statements and oral and written purpose statements and the value of those, and the value of them in reading and the value of them in mathematics and science and social studies. And they had collected some data from teachers, some self-assessment about how frequently am I engaging in purpose statements with my kids, both oral and written, and in my content areas. And as you might guess, varied data set. And so when I think about these opportunities next year, you take that set of data and you say to teachers, this Friday we're going to work on purpose statements. If you need to work on oral purpose statements in English, this will be your group. If you need to work on written purpose statements in mathematics, this will be your group. And so what you really have there is real-time professional experiences where teachers are collaborating about work that we know matters next, and it's individualized to the needs that they have in the moment. So they would actually, my vision of how that works in sort of this Friday early dismissal is those teachers get into the groups based on their need, and then they get out their content and lesson work for the coming week, and they start to plan for that coming week around the purpose statement work that's being, and then supported by our instructional design strategists, supported by our principals. So what you really hear in that is work that's really focused on the next right work for our teachers to better support the learning needs of our kids. And that's really sort of best hope and belief out of this system. So with that, if there are additional questions, that might be helpful.
Any questions from the board?
Do we need to close the public hearing?
I think that we can still ask board questions during the public hearing, and then the vote won't actually be until the consent agenda. Is that correct, Laurel? Yeah.
Okay.
No questions?
Not really a question, but thank you, Dr. Buck, for going back and looking at the questions that the board presented. I think you gave us some good data and good response. Appreciate that. Appreciate the input from the public. I too do have a concern that how do we measure the effectiveness of this? I think we do need to have a reflection at the end or partway through, not wait till the end, but next year of what we're seeing and what the results. And probably early on a progress report to see if there are any little bumps or things that we need to smooth through that will help it make it even more effective. So I think that's it.
Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing. Next, we're moving on to BA 16202, the public hearing for the 2016-17 Roof Improvement Project Bid Package 2, and we'll turn that over. Does anybody have comments or questions at this point for this public hearing? All right, seeing none, we'll close that public hearing. Next, we'll move on to public hearing BA 16203, public hearing for the 2016-17 restroom improvement projects. Would anybody like to address the board about those projects? Yes, absolutely. Come on forward.
Whoops, Jackie Kepler, 897 Peralta Road. I didn't see that on the agenda at the time, and I guess I have some input to give based on working at the school I do at Erskine. We recently had our restrooms done 2 years ago, and it's a terrible design as a teacher. We all complain about it, so I would like to give that feedback. Our dryers are the power dryers. They sound like jet engines, and they're in the middle of our main hallway, and you cannot talk to a student to tell them to go line up unless you're yelling at them. So that's one thing to take into consideration. I don't know how they go about designing the restrooms or where you're doing that at, but that's something to consider. We have 5 sinks and 3 hand soap dispensers. That's not enough when you have 20 children lining up to wash their hands. The boys' restroom, for the kindergartners that I work with, we have 1 urinal that they can reach. So we have 20 boys waiting in line for 1 urinal. That was a poor design. We lost our electricity a few weeks ago during that storm, and there's no lights in the restroom, and so it was pitch black. You could not see your hand in front of your face, and another poor design. So I guess my comments would be to please consider, I don't know who designs or puts those into consideration, but those are major issues of this beautiful new bathroom that's not very usable. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments before the board on this matter? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing. Next, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Come on here. All right, a few items for this evening. We're gearing up for the 16-17 school year. Registration for preschool, kindergarten, and alternative kindergarten will be held on Friday, March 4th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Here at the ELSC, Educational Leadership and Support Center. And details can be found on the district website by clicking on the homepage photo banner. Our magnet schools are also in the process of offering tours and hosting events in preparation for the coming year. The Johnson SEAM Academy, which opened last fall, and the Kenwood Leadership Academy, which will open in the fall of 2016, are inviting families to learn more about the theme-based learning opportunities happening at each school. We've posted information about tours and the application process and deadline on our website. If you have a chance to watch those videos, it is completely worth your time. The kids are great. The Metro Care Connection is hosting a community open house from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, February 25th at Taylor Elementary School. As you know, the Metro Care Connections are a school-based health center. Visitors to the open house will have the opportunity to tour the clinic and learn more about how the program supports student health and educational success. I'm pleased to share our district has been chosen as one of the pilot school districts for the state summer reading program. We're still planning on how this will look in our schools, but we expect to have 10 classrooms in place for our third graders, and we're excited to have the opportunity to influence and inform high-quality reading intervention programming both in our schools and throughout the state. If you're familiar with that conversation at all, this is some of the pilot programming that's underway to better support what's coming in terms of the implementation of the third grade reading law. So we're in the work in the pilot phase of that. And a reminder that the annual climate survey will be available through February 26th. It's an opportunity for us to gather feedback from our parents, employees, and high school students on areas including academic preparation, school operations, school leadership, safety and behavior, and parent engagement. So information about the survey can be found at our website. And finally, I am pleased to announce an alumni spotlight video. So we have a rich and diverse group of alumni, and we're proud to have the opportunity to applaud their successes.
Christopher Johnstone discovered his career path while a student in the Cedar Rapids Community Schools.
thanks to a variety of opportunities that were available to him and the encouragement of the teachers who inspired him. By the time he graduated from Jefferson High School in 1999, his passion for performing was undeniable.
I've always regarded my education in Cedar Rapids to be extremely special, and you really only realize this until you go somewhere else and you travel and you find out, oh, how did you grow up? How did you grow up? What did you do? And it started at elementary school. I went to Coolidge Elementary School. Immediately, there was this sense of community within the school. One of the coolest things that we did every year was we had a school musical where the entire school would get involved. Every class had an act in the production. The art teacher was the art director, so she designed all the sets, and then all the parents would come on certain nights and help paint all the drops. And so you learn how to do projects like that, you know. It was special experiences like that, even from elementary school, that I remember and that helped shape what I do today. It was also very apparent in middle school that music was very important in the community, because the high schools would visit Taft, and we'd see them and be like, oh, that's cool, I want to be in that group when I get into Jefferson or Washington or whatever. It wasn't just like a surprise that it just happened to be good everywhere. It was always, oh, this is building into this is feeding into this. You know, there's smart people in this community recruiting and getting young people excited about singing.
Christopher earned his bachelor's degree in vocal performance from Arizona State University and went on to earn his master's degree in opera performance from California State, Long Beach. He worked professionally with symphonies, churches, and regional opera companies while attending school, and then earned the opportunity to study opera at the prestigious Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. This launched his career and a move to New York City to enter the circuit as a performer.
I did go to college for 9 years, which is a long time, but throughout that time I was working professionally and building the career, and that's kind of what you have to do if you want to make a mark in this business. But I quickly learned that there's not many people in the acting theater world, music theater world, that have the singing chops. And there's not many people in the opera world that have the acting chops. So I was like, I want to be the person to bridge that gap. So I really do consider myself a hybrid, and have now kind of moved into the world between opera and theater. I specialize in the classic music theater and bringing a trained voice to contemporary music theater.
His range of ability helped him to land leading roles in national tours for both Avita and South Pacific. He also sold out performances here last summer as a part of the Bruce Moore Cabaret series, thrilling the Cedar Rapids audiences who lined up to welcome him home.
The last 2 tours I did, which took, the Avita was a year and South Pacific was a year and a half. I mean, that's a long time to be doing the same show. I did South Pacific over 500 times. I mean, it's crazy to think that. When you get a production that has, I would say, a dream team, creative team, world-renowned director, award-winning lighting designer, costume designer, that type of team, you really have to take advantage of that and get as much as you can out of it.
Christopher also notes how much he benefited from his involvement in AP History, English, and Biology. He was a member of a national academic decathlon team and was a salutatorian of his graduating class. As he puts it, this was a committed community of teachers, and the proof was in the pudding.
I had a great time with instrumental music, with band at Jefferson High School. We had a great program. Earl Dickinson, Andy Hauk, they took the Band of Blue to the Rose Parade. We marched in the Rose Parade, which was one of the coolest things ever. I do have to say that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for the teachers in Cedar Rapids, just because I had such great teachers. One thing I realized is that I was lucky to get each one of them in the pinnacle of their career. So whether it be, Coolidge with Kathleen McNamara, or Jefferson with Dr. Pete Eklund or Carol Trello, they were both operating at the top of their game. So because I was so inspired by those teachers, because we were part of something that was really special, I always wanted to continue that, and be part of that. So that's why I'm still singing and performing. And I think because we had such good education, that has, helped prepare me for the real world and for this type of career.
Chris is also quick to point out how the Cedar Rapids schools and the Iowa public school system far exceeds other states.
When my family moved to California after I was out of high school, my youngest brother Andrew was starting high school. He was a freshman. So he starts out, first day of school, a week or 2 goes by, and his teachers, our parents, we all realized that he was a whole year ahead of the other kids. He was so well prepared that he was a whole year ahead of the California students. So that was when we first realized, oh, Iowa is special. They do have incredible education.
What is his advice for students today? Simply put, don't be afraid to try it all.
I think one of the most useful things about growing up in Cedar Rapids is that we had access to a lot of different things and a lot of different activities. And I would definitely urge people to try different things. Take soccer, but also join a choir. The more things you try, the more it informs everything else. So don't be afraid to try something new. Like, really do try to diversify your portfolio.
We are pleased to congratulate District alumni Christopher Johnstone on his outstanding career.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that is cool. Jayhawk.
He is a Jayhawk. I don't know if he matches up to some other Jayhawks, but you know. It is very cool. All right. That's terrific. I had a chance to see him at Bruce Moore this summer, and he is an amazing performer. So congratulations to him. And it's time for board reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say? Keith?
I'm on the conference board for the school district, and we had our preliminary meeting and budget. We're setting up another one for the final approval in March. There's no significant changes in that, but it is out there, and if anybody has any questions, please contact me. I missed the last meeting because I'm on the Iowa Association of School Boards, and it was a lobby day, and we had 2 representatives and 2 senators speak at a panel, and it's kind of interesting. It was bipartisan, both, one of each, and they agreed on something right away. And what they agreed upon is that our current system is bad, that we need to be looking at an index system instead of this every year a battle. And I believe some other states are starting to do that, and then say, you know, whatever the base is, we would do that. You would have it set and be indexed, and kind of do away with that and concentrate on education and learning. So we'll see what develops with that. It was 100% agreement between those members, so hurrah. It was a good day and good meetings, and we went around and had one-on-ones with representatives, and so agreement.
That is amazing. Thank you for doing that, Keith. That's terrific. And we'll have a chance as a board, I think, to discuss some of those legislative issues under the board governance section, so we'll continue that discussion. Are there other board reports, Gary?
Yes, I attended Friday the local legislative forum with superintendents and school board members and local legislators. There are about 4 points, key points that walked away from the meeting. First of all, the SSA state supplemental aid for 2016-17. As most of us know, the House passed 2%, the Senate passed 4%. It is in conference committee. Members have been assigned to the committee, but there is no progress at this point, or nothing has come out of that committee, and don't believe that there'll be any further action until that committee makes a report. There was discussion about a coupling tax bill, which applied a federal tax deduction to Iowa tax form. The House passed. The coupling went to the Senate. If this were to pass, it would cost about $100 million or so in state revenue for Iowa. Listening to the Senate or representatives from the Senate, Iowa Senate, it will not pass out of the Iowa Senate. It was not in the governor's budget, and the feeling is from the Senate is that our state budget can't afford additional strain of that loss. The extension of the penny sales tax for school infrastructure. That tax currently sunsets in 2029. There has been, started last year, there were some discussion to try to have an extension of that. As we heard at the start of this session, the governor has suggested that there be an extension to 2049, but his suggestion would be that a portion of that tax after 2029 would go to fund water quality. There are currently 3 bills in the House talking about the extension. One does have the water protection in it. The other 2 does not. The Senate is waiting for a bill to come across for them to act on. The area superintendents and board members voiced support for the extension of the funding, but for funding for school infrastructure only. We also heard that the decline and loss of SS funding is not only affecting Cedar Rapids Community Schools, college community superintendent talked about their district gaining 400 students over the last 3 years, and they've added no additional staff. So that would mean larger class sizes. Dr. Buck described our dramatic demographic change over the last 10 years, the level of poverty and the growth of diversity, particularly in ELL populations. And again, with a decrease in state funding or a leveling of state funding, it's really put restraints on what we can do. The Urban Education Network is having lobbying day on Wednesday, and I will be attending that. That's this Wednesday. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Gary. Any other reports? Raphael?
Yes. Pretty excited to share something, share a report about an opportunity that I had to visit a school district that is very similar in size and very similar in free and reduced student populations, as well as similar size with staff in, of all places, Waukesha, Wisconsin. The first thing that caught my attention, I'll give you the long names for these programs. Facilitating learning through integration, guidance, high expectations, and technology, the acronym being FLIGHT. That was a pretty cool acronym, kind of capturing a lot of different learning that would take place within this program. The other acronym, and there was probably no way I could commit these to memory and be able to recall them. The other is questioning, understanding, exploration, self-advocacy, and teamwork, or QUEST. So these are programs that, like I said, had an opportunity to learn a little bit about Waukesha, Wisconsin, multi-age, multi-grade programs that allow opportunities for 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders to work together in an environment that really effectively uses technology. So technology meaning these kids had the opportunity to work with a 1-to-1 ratio, which means everybody had a laptop, everyone had an iPad or some type of tablet to facilitate what their learning would be. The spaces they were using very closely resembled, from my experience, a lot of what corporate campuses are looking like. Very, very highly organized, but highly collaborative spaces that I kind of see maybe our future, maybe that's the path we could go to down the road to create those environments within, our schools. Surely presents, real world environment where you could see it out in the workplace as well as, mirrored in school. One of the things in actually seeing students interact was that some of the activities that they were involved with each other as well as with other staff, in a traditional classroom would almost be seen as disruptive, having discussions, working together. But here, it was welcomed. It was part of the learning process, and it was expected that kids would work together and communicate to achieve something, to have some common goal or common assignment. Now, that meant that there was little to no referrals because they were working together. They were, like I said, being collaborative. And that was kind of exciting to hear and to kind of learn that there was, not a lot of office referral activity. I guess the thing that I saw the most that I think would have an impact to us as a district is that it presents an option. I mean, we see some of the other programming that we have in the district. It's differentiating our district. I think that's a good thing. Any options that any students would have, any parents would have, those would be benefits for the kids that are in our district, but maybe for kids from other districts as well. So good experience. Look forward to learning more about those types of programs and maybe seeing how they would fit within our district, within our buildings in the future.
Thank you, Raphael. That's terrific. All right. Any other board reports or comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that board members would like to pull for further discussion? Keith?
BA 16213.
The
restroom improvements.
Restroom improvements. Okay, we'll pull that one. Or will there be any others that we want to pull?
No, I was.
That same one?
Same one.
Okay. All right, so go ahead, Keith, we'll pull that.
I hope that, whoops, sorry. I hope that we take into consideration, we want.
We're getting a lot of feedback on that one. Okay.
We want analysis of how our projects are actually working, so it's good to hear from the public, and I hope that that gets relayed to the appropriate people and changes are made as needed.
Thank you. And Gary, you had a comment on that same item?
I do, but I guess to piggyback also on what Keith just said and some of the comments we heard, when we did new building projects, at least recent history, one of the things we'd go about were to get input from the users. And they actually had a voice in the design and the planning of it. It might be well to use some of that same concept on some of the remodel, particularly if it's extensive remodeling, that we look at, get user input into that design. But what I would like to do is, on this item, I question including Garfield in this project. My suggestion would be that Garfield work be pulled out of this work until after we revisit our master facilities planning a little later this year. I have a concern about continuing until we relook at that, putting any extensive remodeling work into a building that possibly may be looked at differently after that facility plan.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that particular topic? And I don't know, Dr. Buck, are there representatives here that maybe could help address those concerns? Do we have?
Yeah, Steve can.
Steve?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I think that Jackie Kepler, who made comment at public hearing, certainly has been heard loud and clear regarding some of the negative feedback at Erskine restrooms, and those comments will be certainly shared with Rob Kleinsmith, and any adjustments that we may be able to make in restrooms that improve the loud noises coming from dryers. We've got enough soap dispensers and those kinds of comments. Certainly appreciated. I think regarding Garfield, we have a promise. We call it the Pepple Promise, and these are just comments that provide for the visibility and the transparency of what we've done as a school district thus far. But we have just south of about $700,000 of planned improvements at Garfield, which include the restroom, but other projects as well. We've thanked the Garfield community regarding the PEPL projects that were on the list when we had our expanded PEPL vote back in September of 2014. So we certainly have thanked the Garfield community, irrespective of the desire of whether we should move forward with these projects at Garfield. And the second comment I would think would be the restrooms are ADA, and the work in ADA is important work we do as a school system. And this is important to provide for restrooms that are accessible. And so just those are, I think, a couple of framing comments to make sure that we're aware of regarding what we may do at Garfield. And certainly, I believe in April, there'll be comments made regarding facility master plans and what we may be doing in the future, which could contain things related to Garfield. So those are my comments.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, or Dr. Buck?
Yeah, so just maybe the cautionary note, if we pause on this, it may, there's, as you might guess, several $1 million in projects that we're working to get lined up to get completed over the next few months and into the summer. And so if we pull this and pause it, and please know either way is probably okay if we want to reinvest in this conversation, it just may mean that the project doesn't get completed this summer for the start of the school year. I don't know the exact timeline, but I just would, you know, on an unintended consequence might be if we pause now that it doesn't happen. But given where this conversation is headed in terms of potentially reviewing our facilities, I mean, I think it's a fair point to bring up too. So I think it's, yeah.
Just a question or a further clarification, and I can appreciate the ADA response, but that has been there. We have other ADA projects that are also in need of. I guess what I'm getting at is that there is not a crucial, this has gone on for a period of time. There is not a absolute demand that we meet this particular ADA requirement. We have other sites, other projects too that are in need of.
That's a fair statement. That's a fair statement.
Yeah, and if you want to put a pause on this one, sort of in light of where this conversation's headed over the next couple months, that's reasonable too. I mean,
so are you asking now for further discussion on this, or just comment, or are you actually asking for a separate vote on this?
I would ask for a separate vote, and my vote would be to approve BA 26, BA 16213, but not including Garfield site at this time.
Is there a second to do that?
I'll second.
Okay. So this will be a roll call vote. Let's do a roll call on it.
Dr. Jansen?
Is there
Yes.
discussion?
Yes, yes, we can have more discussion, absolutely. Is there any?
We're going to do the first vote first, right? And then this one.
Well, we can do this one first, and then,
Right. Just
and
wanna
because
be
if
sure
this
we'll-
fails, then we can vote for the whole
Are we
consent.
voting on all?
We're voting on BA 16213.
You're voting aye approving, aye meaning that I'm approving that it be pulled out and for further study.
You're voting that, what Gary just said was that we.
So I'm
You're voting
saying
on
yes,
that
I do
motion.
want that motion to be
You want
pulled
it,
out.
you want it pulled out? Well, you're approving all of the projects except for Garfield. Is that what you're saying?
That is my motion, yes. And I believe that's
And there
what
was
we're
a
voting
second
on.
on that motion.
Right, and I'm,
And so we're going to vote on BA 16213 on Gary's motion that we approve the awarding of the contracts for restroom improvement projects minus the Garfield
Yeah.
project.
that is what I'm,
Okay? And so Keith, you're asking for
I'm
further?
asking for discussion.
Okay, so.
My discussion would
Yes.
be, if we can delay this and get more information on it, I don't want the word get out there that we think there's something, it's news to me that there's anything happening in Garfield. So if we can delay this, just this one section on that one or all of it, I would much prefer that because we haven't had that discussion.
Would you like
And
to?
it's inappropriate, in my opinion, to raise that flag to the people at Garfield if we never had the discussion. There's a whole state procedure we're supposed to be going through. Until that happens, I want to keep the school intact. And on the right, our kids are going there, our community's kids, and we need to be sure we have the right services. So, you know, can we delay that section or the whole thing for a month?
Would you like to place a friendly amendment to his motion on that? That we delay the decision on Garfield?
The Garfield decision, yes.
And Gary, would you approve that friendly amendment?
I want to be clear on what we are doing.
The friendly amendment.
Are we going to delay the BA 16-213?
No. So this is your amendment that we vote on BA 213, and we pull Garfield. And Keith is asking for a friendly amendment that we just pull Garfield but reconsider it, that we're not nixing it.
Okay.
President Laverty.
So
He's tabling, I think the intent of it is he's tabling
I'm
that
tabling
part.
for a month.
So the next meeting, we can come back and give you additional.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was
So you want to
agreeing,
table it?
that we were tabling
That's the
the
friendly
discussion
amendment.
for
Yes.
Garfield.
So he would like to table it for Garfield.
And get more information,
Yes.
the status of Garfield, and so that we don't raise the red flag over.
So at this point, there's a motion on the floor. So Gary, you have to either accept or decline
Okay,
his.
I got point of order.
Yes.
My amendment requires a second.
Second.
So you're making a friendly amendment
Yes.
to his motion.
Right.
okay, and I could accept it or not. And I need this-
No, it's a vote on my amendment.
No, it's
Yours is
I
a
could
separate
be-
amendment.
It could be, I could accept it as a friendly amendment, and then we would just
Oh,
vote
all
with
right.
him.
And so do you accept it as a friendly amendment to pull Garfield or tabling it?
So what we will do is we would vote on BA 213, which would not have Garfield in that motion. But we would come back and address that, adding Garfield to this at a later date.
Right. He's asking that we table just the Garfield discussion out of that BA 16-213.
I find that as a friendly, I would accept that and
Okay.
amending my motion to that.
Okay. So as it stands, the motion is on BA 16213, the award of contracts for the 2016-17 restroom improvement project, that we as a board would vote either yea or nay on this, minus Garfield, which we would table until more information is brought before the board at the appropriate time. And Steve?
I think there's a pertinent piece of information that the board needs to understand before you vote on this one. If we pull Garfield out, the other restroom projects, the contractor who has bid it based upon an economy of scale. Now, it's going to be a game changer when if Garfield is even tabled, we won't be able to move forward on anything. There could be issues with timing. We're a month away from our next board meeting. It may be too long for us to be able to execute and mobilize a plan to get the other remaining restrooms done outside of Garfield. If Garfield is pulled, it complicates the situation. We may be back with a rebid of all of the other schools' restrooms absent Garfield, if that's what the board decides to do. Does that make sense?
So it's more than just tabling Garfield. It could be a rebid of without Garfield.
So we're going to go ahead and move forward with just voting on Gary's amendment as revised per Keith's suggestion. So if you vote yes on this, you're agreeing that we're just pulling this, that it's going to be voted on as part of the consent agenda without the Garfield. We're going to table the Garfield. If you vote no on this at this point, you're going to agree with Steve's, or take Steve's account here and say, we're just going to leave it as is, and it's just going to be back to being part of the consent agenda. Does that make sense? So if you vote yes, you're voting Gary. We're going to pull this. I'll have a separate vote on it. Without the Garfield, it'll be tabled. If you vote no, you're saying just leave it as is, and it'll be part of the consent agenda as it was before. Gary?
With board approval, I remove my motion.
Okay.
And if I could just make a comment.
Yep.
By no means, by making this motion, did I have any intent to infer on an intended action against or about Garfield. It's just a concern that I know it's an item that will be a part of that discussion, and I just think it would be a wise decision. But understanding that, and also taking in consideration if it's just restroom, it probably is not going to devalue the property, so it would be an asset probably moving forward to whatever we do with it. So
Okay.
I remove my motion.
All right. So right now, there's no motion on the floor, correct? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Another point of order.
Yes.
I have to withdraw my amendment, which I will do. Then he has to withdraw his.
Yes. Thank you.
With the second.
With the second.
Withdrawing.
Okay.
I thought I did, but okay, I withdraw.
I
my
have
motion.
to do it first. I'm the
Okay.
amendment, then you.
All right.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. All right. So everything is withdrawn at this point. There are no amendments or friendly amendments on the floor at all. Okay.
We're consenting.
All right. Are there any other items that anybody wants to pull for discussion or clarification or separate vote? All right. Seeing none, would somebody read a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And this is a roll call vote due to the personnel report.
Director Capolo. Director Meisling.
Aye.
Director Westerkamp.
Aye.
Director Humbles.
Aye.
Director Anholt.
Aye.
Director Jansen.
Aye.
President Laverty.
Aye. Thank you very much. The sound tech does want to remind us all on the board to speak into the microphone, so let's clarify that. We'll move on to board governance. We are removing the amendment for the agreement with Piper Jaffray, so you'll see that that is removed for this meeting. That was part of the revised agenda. And we'll move on then to the 2016 legislative priorities, and we'll turn that over to you, Dr. Buck.
Yeah, so one of the items that came before this board, I think a meeting or two ago, we talked some about an update on legislative priorities, and Gary gave us a really nice synopsis of sort of some recent information from that Friday. One of the parts of that conversation that emerged is an additional way to reach out to our parents and have them engage relative to our legislators. So we are actually working on a short parent letter that we believe will be on our website. Parents will be able to access that letter, and if they would choose then to forward it to legislators, we're working on a way to make that happen. So just a comment around advocacy. We also did update our budget at a glance document. So we have the budget at a glance document. We did update that, and the two probably major changes that I would highlight. One, we had a caption on one of the graphs that said decline in school funding, which really isn't what's happening. We do receive increases in school funding. So the caption was creating some consternation, and we weren't trying to create any of that. When we put that caption on, we thought it was doing what it intended to do, but rather than have that sort of continue point of friction, we did take that off. The graph still stands for itself. There has been an overall decrease in the increase in funding in schools over the last several years, and that's why the caption is confusing, right? The second part we did with the at a glance is we often get these questions about the buckets of school funding. So we did insert a graph from ISFIS, and I know I'm not supposed to use acronyms, but it's the Iowa School Finance, IS. I don't know what the rest of the IS is, but that's the group. And it does a really nice job of delineating the types of things that are purchased out of each of those buckets. So we did put that on there, and it's really a nice graphic representation of what happens with, this idea that certain things can only be purchased out of certain categories of funding. So those are probably the two updates we made. And
then we took, as the young men said from the Iowa Student Union, this new group, we took about 40 or so high school students from all of our high schools, all 4 of the high schools. Raphael had a chance to go, and several of the staff from the district, parent volunteers and myself went, and did have some great discussions at the Capitol. Was that last week now? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Time flies when you're having fun, right? So we had great discussions, meaningful discussions. The students certainly learned a lot about the process. I think they learned a lot about the different issues from all perspectives at the Capitol, which was healthy. They came back with an energy level that they want to continue talking with our legislators, our elected officials, and the governor about what school funding has an importance in their lives as students and for their buildings. So I think part of this discussion is, so if there is this letter, how best can we as a board get this out? Are we all interested in continuing this discussion? Obviously, that's part of what we do as a board, is advocate for adequate funding for all the programs and needs in Cedar Rapids schools and for K-12 funding. Do we want to go this route? We have some interest, I think, from several on the board of bringing together some of our economic development folks. The Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance has come out publicly. Dee Baird and I had some back and forth today. They're very strong with the 3%. They realize that will adequately provide for some funding for projects that relate to workforce development and economic development to go forward. The Marion MCAD? Medco, thank you. Medco has also come out with 3% publicly. Nick Lewis sent out a public letter about that from Medco. So do we want to, as a board, engage in this? We have interest from the Linn-Mar board and superintendent in pursuing this. Other school board members have reached out to me and said that they would be interested in this. And Dr. Buck, I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with the superintendents. I think maybe at that Friday discussion there might have been some surrounding that.
We did not have a chance to connect.
All right.
We've missed each other at the 2 meetings. We would have seen each other between now and then.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But I think there is that interest, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think that there is an interest. Before we go out and start pursuing all of these different things, I know a lot of us are putting time into contacting legislators already. It's pretty clear out there in the public. Do you all feel like there's a need to continue pushing this year? Or, Keith, as you said, there's the interest in thinking future. Where can we move this discussion, for a different funding solution down the years to come?
One thing that came up at that meeting from the legislators is shockingly low number of school board members actually are contacting legislators. That, we have the parent groups and so on, but the legislators are saying, we want to hear from you as elected officials, and it's not happening.
Not in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I can tell it, not in the Cedar Rapids. They're asking us they've heard us.
They were turning us away, John, if I remember right.
And they're very adamant about it. And pretty good uniform agreement that in a lot of districts, it's not happening.
Yeah. Mary?
Yes, I think we should continue these efforts, not only about the current issues that we're working with the state legislators on, but future funding and how that looks. I think these conversations have to be ongoing. We have to engage every parent and every community member that we can. Remember, it pertains to our property values of our homes as well. We have to have a robust and excellent school district, and we need to advocate for that on a regular and consistent basis. So I would say continue to push.
Great. Thank you. Gary?
I would just say, counter a little bit with Keith, that at least from our local legislators, I think it's important that they hear from outside of just teachers and administrators and school personnel directly. I think they are getting that message, but I think it's their constituents, it's the public, it's the general public, it's the parents, it's the business community that I think needs to step up also. It's good to hear about the economic development in Marion and Cedar Rapids. It is economic development, good schools. So I think that if we can get vehicles out that will help them, if people want to be advocates for our schools, it'll give them some of the tools that they can do that. And we can do that quite, as just helping them. It's not advocating for a particular position, it's just giving them basic information and how to go about it. So I think it's a positive. I think we should do it.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts on all of that? What I'm hearing is go ahead and move forward with this. So Dr. Buck, I think we'll keep moving on that. All right. We'll move on to BA 16011/07, the policy manual review and revisions. And Dr. Buck and Laurel, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you. Given the lateness of the hour, we'll take any questions that you might have.
Any questions? See none. That was an information item only. So thank you, Dr. Buck and Laurel, for all your work on those. And that will come back to us for a policy. Okay, thank you. All right. I will remind people at the end of the meeting, we will move into a closed session and for litigation strategy. So that's on the agenda, but we'll move to go into that after we're done with our work session. So with that, we'll turn it over to...
It does require a motion in a second, please.
Okay. To do that now instead of at the end?
You have to do the motion now so that we can go into the closed session.
Got it. Okay. All right. So the closed session will, for litigation strategy, we'll move into a motion for that. Is there a motion and a second?
Motion.
Okay. And a second? Second. All right. So this is a roll call vote to go into closed session.
Director Meisterling. Aye. Director Westerkamp.
Aye.
Director Humbles.
Aye.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Jansen.
Aye.
Director Jacobo.
Aye.
President Laverty.
Aye. All right. Now we'll move into the work session. So I'll turn this over to Dr. Pickering and discussion of the magnet school grant update.
President Laverty, Board of Directors. Tonight's presentation is going to be short and sweet. There isn't much to update you about the magnet school update, so we'll get right to it. It was set to be released today, the federal magnet school grant that we intend on applying for, $12 million over 4 years to open up new magnet school opportunities for our kids. They've released that date until late March or early April, so we were hoping to have our hands on it today to know what they were going to be looking for in that, but we're going to have to wait another month or so. That's going to push the award date back at least a month. They're going to delay it for 6 weeks probably for us. I would assume October 1st will be a pretty aggressive timeline for them. So we won't know until October 1st. However, if we are awarded on October 1st, anything we expend on the magnet schools that we intend on starting that are not already in progress, like Kenwood, we will be able to apply to the grant. So, and as you're aware, we do have an effort to try to put a magnet school together every year or two here for a period of time, and so we are continuing to do that. And so the next slide shows you the progression. We opened the Johnson STEAM Academy last August. This fall we will open the Kenwood Leadership Academy, and the staff there is getting busy and working on what that's going to look like for our kids. And then we talked to the Roosevelt staff a few weeks ago and let them know that they would be the next magnet school, whether or not we get the grant, that they would be the next magnet school. Again, all of these buildings really focus on what the SIAC committee said we should be looking for when we think about magnet schools, looking in areas of our community that are undergoing revitalization, how we can increase the diversity of those buildings, offer opportunities throughout the city, those kind of things. So the Roosevelt Middle School magnet will open a year from August, about 18 months from now. We do not have themes determined. That's going to be something that the staff and administration, we sit down and determine what those are going to be and then present those to you as we put those together. So again, if awarded, Kenwood and Roosevelt would be a part of the grant, that we would be able to expend dollars for professional development and curriculum materials and so forth for those two schools. Johnson STEAM Academy, not so much because it's an existing school and we can't go back and do that. So what I wanted to share with you tonight is what are the other schools that we would like to add to the grant moving forward. And so the schools I'm going to talk about tonight would only move forward if we receive the grant monies. So that's the big if here. So we realize we need to look at a high school option for magnet schools, because now we have 2 elementary and middle. So Iowa Big program is in a good position, I think, to become a magnet school. It operates almost like one now, and that would give high school kids the opportunity to have that experience. The second is looking at another middle school on the other side, on the east side, and we would recommend that McKinley would move forward to be our magnet school there. Several reasons. Again, it's an area of town that's in the midst of revitalization. It's right in the medical district, so we can leverage all of the resources there to provide our kids with some unique opportunities. It also feeds Johnson STEAM Academy, so it's going to be a nice, easy transition for any families at Johnson that want to continue a magnet experience at the middle school. Then we looked at another elementary school on the west side, and so we are going to recommend that Taylor Elementary be included in the grant for the purposes of that. Again, the Taylor community is a big focus for our entire community. United Way and other organizations are really focusing in on helping that part of our community revitalize, so we could be a big part of that as well. And then again, Taylor would be a logical feed then to the Roosevelt Middle School. So that really would give us 3 on the east side, 2 on the west side, with nice pathways for students to access several different kinds of magnet school experiences if they so desired. We are thinking about looking at possibly adding 1 more school, but we want to withhold that until we see the grant and see how far that $12 million would take us, and if we would have the capability of doing something else. So that's an update. I was hoping to be able to tell you some more details about what's in the grant today, but I don't know because I didn't release it.
Terrific. Any questions of the board? Dr. Pickering? Thank you very much, Trace. We appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right, next we'll move on to the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget update, and Steve Graham.
I'm going to do some modification of the presentation, and I'm going to shrink this thing down to 3 slides. How about that?
Perfect.
And it's difficult to look behind you while we're talking in front of you here, so I'm going to just, Justin, if we could move on to the next slide. The real story here is we have 2 different budget processes. We've got the certified budget process, which requires us to have a budget by the 15th of April. And that is running in tandem, a little behind the process of the line item budget. The line item budget is where we're looking at the details of our general fund primarily, but all the other funds as well. So in order to provide for a certified budget by the statutory deadline of April the 15th, all the comments I'm making tonight are really around the certified budget process and not the line item detail budget process. So if we could go on to the next slide. 3 dates here. Today we're giving a budget update. The 14th of March is a key date. That's where I will bring to you a levy rate, a recommendation, and I think there's enough information known today that we'll be able to hold the levy rate where we're at. We'll likely be bringing a levy rate recommendation to hold it firm where it's currently at, even with the second year now of absorbing a 67-cent levy rate increase for our expanded PEPA levy. So this is really good news that we're going to hold that. I believe we're going to hold that steady. That'll be a part of the conversation on the 14th of March, and then we'll publish a budget on the 12th, which is a Tuesday, because I understand many of you will be gone on Monday the 11th. So on Tuesday, we'll hold a public hearing where we'll listen to comment, and then we'll approve a budget for fiscal 17. So that's really kind of it. That's really, I could go beyond that, but why? I think those are the real... I'm hearing yeas over here.
Steve, we know you want to tell us more. I know you do.
So those are the important elements you should know, and I'm here to answer questions if you have any.
Great, great. March 28th.
Sorry.
Okay, very good.
Sorry. Yes.
So we could ask you back again for more comment we needed it. Okay.
Yes.
All right, good to know. Are there questions of Steve Graham about the budget?
Glad to see that we can hold that rate steady.
Yes.
People think we can raise our rates to accommodate deficits from the State House, and that's simply not true.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Dr. Buck, anything? No? Great. Thank you, Steve. We really appreciate your work on that. So with that, just a reminder to make sure you take your school board calendars with you, do your evaluations, and we will move into closed session at this point.